What's up, my lovely comic book nerds? So, as many of you know, today is the day that us comic fans and DC fans have been waiting for a very long time. It's been like, what, almost 2 years in the making, year and a half in the making? Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock issue 1 has finally hit as of midnight last night. A lot of comic book stores were doing midnight releases and all that fun stuff, giving out these pins and all kinds of posters. I actually got this one at New York Comic Con. But yeah, it's a huge event. We've been waiting for it forever, and it is here. And I've read the first issue actually like 30, 40 minutes ago. So I'm here to give you my thoughts. Now, keep in mind that, again, I just read it. And this is a comic that Geoff Johns even said during the Doomsday Clock panel at New York Comic Con. This is a comic you're going to have to read more than once to catch all the little nuances and things that are hidden in the book and really let it sink into your brain. So if I miss something or don't mention X, Y, or Z, that's because I've only read it once and I just read it like 30 minutes ago. So I myself am waiting for it to sink into my head. But it definitely was a real treat. But before I get into that, I do want to let you guys know, it's kind of obvious, but I'm going to be spoiling stuff. If you haven't read Doomsday Clock issue 1 yet, no, this episode is going to contain all sorts of spoilers. I'm going to talk about everything, or as much as I remember, that happened in the issue. So if you haven't read it and you don't want it spoiled, there's your spoiler warning. If you do not care, well, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to say about Doomsday Clock issue 1 is it is very much a Watchmen book. Now, Geoff Johns even said this is a direct sequel to Watchmen, but it's like, in reading it, it's like, I mean, he said it, but reading it's like, oh my God, it's literally a direct sequel to Watchmen. Not like I didn't believe him, but it just hits you more in reading it. He did such a good job of, kind of following or mimicking what Alan Moore did with the original Watchmen. It very much feels just like a sequel, which is what it is. I don't think many writers could have pulled it off like Johns did. I mean, the whole time I'm just got brought back to, the first time reading the Watchmen book. It was pretty crazy, to the 9-grid layout for the panels. Like here you see, so Watchmen is very, famously known for the way it's laid out, kind of in that style. If you guys read it, what it's like. But even that, down to the art, to the way the word bubbles are in there, it was just really fun to kind of be rereading Watchmen, but not rereading the first one, reading a new version, like a continuation. It was just really, really, really cool to read. With that said, let's give you a summary of said book. So before I give you a summary, though, I do want to say, now this book kind of was buzzing around the internet saying like a lot of questions were going to be answered in this book, because as you all know, with DC Rebirth, Dr. Manhattan, like this kind of ties into that, and it's the bigger picture for the DC universe going forward. But we actually don't get too many questions answered in this first issue, which I was expecting, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. Not to say the issue was fantastic, I'll tell you that. It was really good issue. I just thought we were going to get more answers. But this first issue was basically just a setup to let all of us fans know that Watchmen is in good hands, and to pretty much be like, this is where the next 11 issues are going to go. It's pretty much set up. There's some cool reveals in here, which I'll get into in a second, but we don't, know as far as like what Dr. Manhattan's true involvement is with DC Rebirth. We don't know any of that. What Superman's real connection is with him. We just know what we've kind of known from the beginning, that by the end of the story, Superman and the Watchmen are going to come head to head in some form or another, whether that's physical, mental, we don't really know yet. It's just been alluded to. Anyway, summary of the book. So the first 6 pages of the book was actually released online during New York Comic Con. So some of you may have already read that, or we've known about that for quite a while now. But I'm going to go through it anyway, because this live stream is for Doomsday Clock. Anyway, the synopsis of the book is it starts out where we see a bunch of people, like the world is rioting. It's going crazy. It's on the cover of the book. This is the end. The end is here, is what one of the picket signs says. Pretty much this is all going on, we find out, because it was revealed that at the end of the first Watchmen, Ozymandias, when he had that whole alien invasion and stuff to basically unite the world, be like, stop fighting each other. We got to fight this greater threat. It was revealed to the public via Rorschach's journal that it was found somehow that was all a setup by him, and it was basically a lie. It was a trick to get the world unite. And the world was like, that we were living a lie, and the countries of the world didn't like that, so they're all rioting, they're going after each other. and that's not good. So, in the midst of all that going down, we're brought to a prison where there's a prisoner being like, telling the guard, "Give me those keys, I want those keys." And then we see a gloved hand come down, and we turn the page, and it's freaking Rorschach. Now, that's what we've known before this issue came out. Those were the first pages released thus far. But that reveal is still insane because Rorschach, because as we all know, at the end of the first Watchmen, Rorschach, Dr. Manhattan, killed him. If you've seen the movie, you know, pretty much the same thing. Exploded, dead, bye-bye, Rorschach, blood and guts everywhere. So that leaves a lot of questions to like, how did he come back? Well, we actually find out how he did or didn't come back because after that, excuse me, I'm kind of going through to refresh my memory. I got the issue on my iPad right here, so try not to forget anything. We find out a few pages later that this Rorschach isn't the original Rorschach. So I guess that as of now, that the original Rorschach is still dead. We don't know who this Rorschach is as of yet. That's a big mystery. But it's not the real one. But although it's kind of crazy though, is he acts just like the real Rorschach. Like his whole dialogue and everything. Like he even says something to the effect, talking about him going to breakfast early that morning, talking about cold syrup and hot syrup. Rorschach, cool dialogue stuff. In the end though, the waitress that he likes, her boyfriend ended up strangling her and beating her. So Rorschach didn't like that. He didn't think that was too nice, and broke both of his hands and put a fork through his tongue, if I remember that correctly. So not the original Rorschach, but very much still Rorschach. So that's pretty cool. We see Rorschach go to this jail cell, or this place where they're keeping this woman hostage. One of his old villains, Marionette, he releases her because he's like, I need your help. I need your help for X, Y, and Z, because me and my partner, my boss, or whatever, we just need your help. And she's like, well, I'm not going to help you unless we get my husband out, because, yeah, it's just not going to be a thing. Her husband is the Mime, which is another villain of Rorschach. So obviously they get him out. And there's a real cool dialogue, like back and forth with the Mime and Rorschach. It's actually pretty, because you know Rorschach's like very serious and like brutal, but he's like that straight man to where like he's so serious and stuff that like he comes off funny because he's like very like, kind of like, not like Drax, but like he's just serious and like he takes things kind of literal sometimes. It's just, I don't know, Rorschach's awesome. Anyway, from there, Rorschach takes the Marionette and Mime back to takes them like underground, and like they're like, where are you taking us? What's happening? What's going on? And he's like, left or right? They're like, what do you mean left or right? And he's talking aloud, inner monologue, as Rorschach does all the time, and he's basically just saying like, what tunnel way should he go through? And that right there sends off signs for Watchmen fans. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, you're underground, like subway somewhere, tunnels. Is he going to the Night Owl's, like, you know, his fortress, his owl cave of sorts? And yes, he is. He goes in there, and we see, you know, Night Owl's lair with his costume and all that stuff in there. So that was really cool. It's funny because it reminded me of the Watchmen movie, because Zack Snyder was very detailed with the Watchmen movie. I mean, a lot of things look like ripped right out of the comic book. So not only did it remind me of the original Watchmen comic, it reminded me of the movie, which was really cool. Anyway, while there, we find out the guy that Rorschach is working with is Ozymandias, the one that everyone is trying to find right now because of what he did to the world. Oh, I kind of left out an important part. Before all this, or during all this, the world is kind of going to war with one another. I said that. But there's a countdown of sorts to missiles and stuff going on, because America's going to be attacked, and Rorschach is saying, we only got like 2 hours and blah, blah minutes left, so we need to hurry up and get this going. When we are introduced to Ozymandias, we find out that he has cancer, and he's dying. He is dying. So he's trying to fix, again, what he did before. He's trying to fix the world, because even though like he lied and whatever, he still just wants to, I guess, bring the world back together and have everyone be all peaceful and happy. But he can't do it this time. And he says, pretty much at the end of the comic book, there's only one person who could do this, and that is Dr. Manhattan. The problem with that is, at the end of Watchmen, he left the planet and went to go do his own things, and that was that. So I guess the setup, one of the big things or plots for the story is going to be Rorschach, Ozymandias, and probably other people looking for Dr. Manhattan to see where the heck he is. Another important thing I should have mentioned earlier is that this is all taking place in 1992, which is several years after the original Watchmen comic took place. So there was a few years apiece, but truth came out, as it tends to do. And here we are. So that was a big thing after that. So that was a huge thing that the comic's pretty much going to go. They're looking for Dr. Manhattan. Then after that, now this got my little nerdy heart. I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. So after that, we turn and we are brought to Metropolis. Now, why is that really cool? Because the DC universe and the Watchmen universe is now one. Like, that's just crazy. Like, I never thought, like, obviously DC Comics, Warner Brothers owns Watchmen. That's a given. But they were never in the same universe. Like, you never saw them cross. You never saw, like, Batman, team up with Rorschach, at least in canon. I think they might have before, but not in, like, canon, in continuity. So that's just crazy that they're all living in the same thing now. So that alone was pretty awesome. Anyway, Superman has a nightmare, he does have a nightmare. He has a nightmare of his parents dying, and it startles him. He wakes up and all that stuff, and he wakes up, so he's all kind of freaked out, and he starts floating in the bed, which is pretty cool. So like, apparently when Superman has a nightmare, he starts floating. Lois, who's in bed with him, freaks out. She's like, what's happening? He's like, I had a nightmare of the day my parents died, and that's crazy. She's like, oh my God, really? And he's like, yeah, but the crazy thing is, I've never had a nightmare before. And then the comic ends. So, I mean, that's pretty much the first issue right there. So we get a snippet of the DC universe introduced into the Watchmen universe. But that's why at the beginning of this issue, this is very much a setup comic for the rest of the story to let us fans know, okay, this is the general idea of what's going on, and we got this. Because, again, my favorite thing about the comic is the story and the setup is cool. I mean, because it's very much just a setup, and we could just, we got 11 issues left. We could freaking take off from here. But I love that they kind of were like, this is one of the most beloved graphic novels, comic books of all time, and we're going to do this right. Like, because at the beginning of the episode, I was expecting a lot more answers, but in hindsight, I kind of like that it was, I suppose, a little slower, in a sense, just to ease us in. Because, I mean, we got 11 issues left, and all sorts of stuff is going to happen. I mean, we know Superman is going to come face-to-face with Dr. Manhattan at one point, and that's going to be all kinds of epicness. Geoff Johns already said Batman's going to be in here, several other characters, Lex Luthor. Not all the DC characters, but a lot, I guess, the heavy hitters. So I just can't wait to see, like, when those people get introduced, like, full on. But I guess the biggest things to take away from this thus far is they're looking for Dr. Manhattan to make the world good again. Rorschach's back, but it's not the real Rorschach unless there's a double twist later on. And Superman is having crazy nightmares, which is weird because he's never had nightmares before. And of course, that is obviously a link to Dr. Manhattan somehow, hence Doomsday Clock, and there being a countdown for Doomsday Clock to Superman. So, yeah, I really like the first issue. I think you guys definitely need to check it out. But I'm going to look at the comments right here, the live feed, interact with you guys for a bit. How much is the comic? The comic is $4.99. It is a 34-page comic, so it is a little more expensive because you're getting more story. So, but I highly recommend you pick it up. It's a ton of fun. Dr. Manhattan made the DC universe. I mean, maybe. that's a theory. He definitely has his hands in Rebirth somehow, or altered it. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see. X-Faded Venom X says, is this with DC Metal? No. I mean, it ties into the whole DC universe, but it's not anything to do with DC Metal per se. Let's see. Comics moving fast. Theories. Dark Aces says, theories on new Rorschach. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm wondering if it would be like a DC character, though. Wouldn't that be something, to not necessarily be a Watchmen character, but for it to be a DC character? I honestly don't have any guesses at this point. I mean, it's so early in the game that it could literally be anyone, or a completely new character, so I got nothing for you yet. Kiss Guy says, the question, That would be awesome. I mean, that's who the Rorschach character is loosely based on, right? Red Hood. uh, Jay Little says, damn, I need to read the original Watchmen. Yes, you do. You really, really do. Geoff Johns said, actually, the only comic you have ever have to read is the first Watchmen, and just know who Superman and Batman are, and you're all set. And after reading this, it's pretty true. I mean, this is like a Watchmen book through and through, minus the end when Superman comes in, but everyone knows who Superman is, so there you go. Bounty Hunter says, how will Manhattan affect the DC universe? I mean, any way he wants. He's like pretty much top 5, top 3 most powerful characters in the DC universe, because I guess he's down in the DC universe. So, I mean, alter reality, I don't know, he could pretty much do anything. So, I mean, it's kind of endless what he could do. It's tough to say. Andrew Edwards says, will DC be rebooted after Doomsday Clock? No, I do not think so. I think it hasn't been confirmed flat out, but I think Geoff Johns has made it more than apparent that DC Rebirth and Doomsday Clock is not a reboot, which is the smartest thing I think they could have done. Like this is, because I've said it before, it's like a reboot with not a reboot. It's basically like oh, you fans didn't like that much, so we're going to find a very clever way to link all of our history together and make it work. And man, is it working. But I don't think it's going to be a reboot. I mean, it's going to change things for sure, but it's not going to be like rebooted. At least I don't think so. And what they've been alluding to, I don't think that's going to be the case. It's hard to read the comments going so fast, guys. It's hard to pick one. I appreciate all the love in there, though. That's a good problem to have, right? Garrett Tanner, is Manhattan going to destroy Superman? No. I mean, if they fight, he might beat him in a fight, but I mean, he's not going to destroy, so you can't kill Superman. That's not a thing you could do. All right. Well, I'm going to round this out with one last question, my comic Conrads. Peter Garcia, I bet it's Night Owl. I know that's not a question, but that's actually... I mean, maybe. That could be a thing. Who knows? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? All right. But I'm going to wrap this up, guys. But before I close out today's little live stream, I want to let you guys know that later today, we're going to be putting up another variant video, a normal variant video, not a live video, a normal one with editing and pictures and all that fun stuff. It's going to be the Justice League Origin, which is Volume 1 of the New 52, because the Justice League movie just came out. And DC's on everyone's minds right now. DC Metal, Doomsday Clock, Justice League movie. So I'm going to be going through the Volume 1 of the first 6 issues of the New 52 Justice League title later today. That's going to be up around 5 or 6 Central Standard Time. So look out for that later. Saturday, we are going to be doing Origin of the Thinker, because he's the main villain for Flash. So that's going to be up. And Monday, we're going to be doing a Comic Fans or Nerds Christmas list, where we're going to have a bunch of collectibles of cool things sent from a bunch of awesome companies: Sideshow Collectibles, ThinkGeek, DC Collectibles, NECA. We're going to have all kinds of nerdy stuff to unbox and show you guys that you're going to want on your Christmas list. But lastly, and mostly, tomorrow's Thanksgiving, guys, so have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving with all your family and friends. Stay safe, and, it's the time of giving and friendliness. So if you can help someone in any way, be kind to one another, and read comics, guys. But I'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.